I'm not exactly the first person to jump up and down and cheer for GB News after the way they treated me. They can rot in hell, as far as I'm concerned. One of these days when I'm not under an NDA, I will tell my story.
Breaking right now, the anti-isolation march for Tommy Robinson took place through central London at the weekend, but the incredible, positive, non-violent scenes, surprise, surprise, ignored by the mainstream media, including GB News. Here's what they chose not to show you. But Liam Tufts, really good guy, podcaster, close friend of Tommy Robinson, posted after watching GB News coverage of the event, "I'm starting to lose faith in GB News. Stick to your word and be the people's channel." I'll get reaction from Alex Phillips in just one moment, but here's what Liam had to say.
Just an observation before I call it a night after a glorious day in the capital of our country, standing tall and side by side with the working class patriots of Great Britain. I noticed GB News have reported on the events that took place today in London, and the camera action was veered on the anti-racist and the anti-fascist protest, which was embarrassing because they were 95% white, and the Stop the Isolation event was a wide range and mixture of races. Seems bizarre that the camera footage that GB News put out is of a small group of wallies protesting against people that genuinely protest and detest racists. So, GB News, are you the people's channel? Is there someone preventing you from reporting the truth? Great footage you would have had today. 100,000 people waving Union Jacks. At one stage, they were singing the YMCA. You can't get more fair and friendly than that. But I noticed GB News haven't reported properly on what took place today in London. I'm starting to lose faith in you, GB News. You must do better.
A lot of good patriots weighed in after Liam posted that video. Chris Davies wrote, "Liam, GB News is part of the establishment. I backed them 100% until they sacked Mark Stein and stopped watching completely when they fired Dan Wootton, Lawrence Fox and Calvin Robinson. They are controlled opposition and anything but the People's Channel. Avoid." Lawrence Fox posted, "It was forever thus." So let me bring in Alex Phillips on this, who has an interesting point of view. Because Alex, Brexit Party MEP, GB News launch presenter, works in the mainstream and independent media, and has been one of the only MSM journalists to interview Tommy Robinson before he went to prison. So, Alex, do you think there is any excuse for a broadcaster like GB News not to cover this type of protest, which, let's be honest, was totally positive, no violence, and actually is full of people who watch their channel and want to support their channel?
Yeah, well, look, I'm not exactly the first person to jump up and down and cheer for GB News after the way they treated me. They can rot in hell, as far as I'm concerned. One of these days when I'm not under an NDA, I will tell my story. That is not going to be today. But is there any excuse for them to have not covered it? Yes, there is actually, and I think we both know what it is. There's a number of excuses. The first one is this remains a regulated channel. They choose to remain on linear television. I think a lot of their viewers probably watch them on their televisions, actually on the channel rather than online. But that, of course, comes with the hefty punishment of being regulated by Ofcom. And I remember, I was just talking about this the other day, actually, with my other half. I remember when I had people on talking about the origins of COVID, because when the channel launched, we were still in the midst of COVID. We were still partially locked down and social distancing. And I had a number of people on talking about that, from Matt Ridley, who's did the book Virus.
Yes.
Professor Angus Dalgleish, who is the world expert of virology and knew full well that that thing was made in a lab, could even point at whose handiwork it had been. And they came to me and said, you mustn't do this again. You mustn't have this on again. There have been warnings and complaints from Ofcom. So I think on one level, they fight with a hand tied behind their backs because they remain on linear television. Unless you're not going to be regulated by Ofcom, you're in trouble. You are controlled opposition. Now, the other thing, of course, that they have faced is this channel launched with a £63 million budget to last them 3 years. They spaffed it up the wall in the first year. They've been perennially in a doom loop of losing money ever since. Their viewing figures might be good. The figures on the bank account probably aren't as good. And one of the reasons that it's impacted them and they haven't started reaping the benefits of the footfall that they might be getting is because of advertising boycotts. And again, when the left moves, it moves. And when it was decided that Stop Funding Hate were going to come after GB News and intimidated various sponsors and various advertisers to not advertise with the channel. And unfortunately, a lot of the big advertisers now are sold through big ad agencies in London who are all woke. It meant that GB News could only get the odd, advert for spray-on hair and tarpaulins made in Merthyr Tydfil, which isn't going to fund the operation of a linear channel. So in that respect, GB News have kind of wedged between a rock and a hard place because they know that if they cover the sort of material that the audience might like, they're going to be in trouble with Ofcom, facing fines from them, in trouble with advertisers, facing blocks from them. So where are they going to get their money? So that is the commercial reality right now of having a channel on television. It's going to take a lot to try and change that. But this is why more and more people are not only sort of leaving the BBC, leaving Sky. They're in huge trouble, aren't they? They're sort of, on the brink of going bust. Sky News anyway. They've always been propped up by the border channel. But more and more people now are even wanting to leave GB News, which was set up to be an antidote for all of this, and come to channels like yours, Dan, because this is where there isn't censorship, because you don't have to worry about whether, Flash want to advertise their cleaning products on your channel. You don't have to worry about whether Ofcom's going to come after you with a big old fine. Yet do expect under the Labour government there to be more regulation as a whole over all sorts of forms of broadcasting. But we live in this period of flux, and actually what's happening in America is quite reassuring because it seems to have reached a pinnacle of woke, that it is going to start being killed off now. And you know what, like I said, I don't have many kind words for GB News because I've still got a bitter taste in my mouth about what happened to me, but I do wish them all the best and I do want channels to thrive, because if channels are not allowed to say what they like on linear TV, which is still the preferred method of viewing for a lot of people, we don't live in a free speech nation. We don't live in a true democracy. So for me, it's important actually that all the things that are facing GB News and preventing it from doing this, if there weren't advertising boycotts, if there wasn't Ofcom regulation, would they have a bolder editorial? I kind of think they probably would. I'm going to give them credit for that. I think they would. But the reality of the 21st century means because they insist on still being on television, they're never going to be able to do what the viewers want them to do.
Very beautifully explained. And I always look back positively, I think, even though it was a nightmare in so many ways, Alex, because look, we came across each other, didn't we? It's these types of friendships. And hopefully we can take now that original mission, which we hoped we would get to do on GB News, into this independent space where you're doing brilliant things on Substack and I know have lots of exciting plans. And I personally believe that is the future because there is far less chance of an individual being corrupted, and especially an individual who isn't regulated and doesn't have to deal with advertising boycott. So I couldn't agree with you more. What was interesting though, Alex, is some of the journalists, the sound journalists who did try and cover these protests at the weekend were actually attacked, but not by the Tommy Robinson supporters, but by the Be Kind lot. The Narinder Kaur and all of that. So I wanted to show you what went down with Jess Gill specifically.
We were literally harassed at the Counter Tommy Robinson protest.
Man literally put his hand on us both.
Yeah, pushed us, these 6-foot men, and the police turned a blind eye and threw us off the property. Put signs on our faces. They were super hostile. It was, you couldn't make it up. We're obviously just two young girls, two young women. We weren't asking anything hostile. We were asking.
I was wearing this badge, you know. my Stop Fascism badge. I was one of them.
So true, so true. But no, they weren't having it. We weren't asking anything controversial. We were supposedly the problem. Asking questions.
They told us the police would arrest us if we didn't leave. And mind you, the police saw that men were putting their hands on us.
They turned a blind eye. They called us far right. The police called us far right.
One of the police officers was friends with a couple of people at the protest.
Well, it looks like it.
He was saying, "Hey, how are you doing? I've not seen you for a while," which goes to show there was a friendship between him and the protesters. And they told us that we are a far-right organisation.
How are we the problem?
So we don't deserve to be at a left-wing protest. We don't deserve to be asking.
They were literally hurling abuse at us.
there.
The protesters were hurling abuse at us in front of the police.
I mean, Alex, that is surely an example of two-tier policing in action, which is why I think it's a real shame that we don't have mainstream journalists down there, because it is left to independent folk like Jess Gill who get treated like that.
Yeah, and also, you know, whatever one's political views, this is an event. It should have been covered as an event. You know, Jess Gill's brilliant. I love her. Well done, Jess, you brave wee thing. Welcome to the world, can I just say, you know,
And she can take it. She's big enough. She can take it.
She can take it. I mean, I remember as an MEP, and they used to insist on having that sort of, you know, adult jamboree on College Green all the time with all those twats wearing berets and crap like that. You know, the sort of ones who never got over the end of Glastonbury Festival for their age group. And the broadcasters loved it. And I remember going to have interviews on College Green and people spitting on me and actually pulling out handfuls of hair during the Brexit years. And the police had to escort me onto College Green. And, you know, there weren't any arrests. It was almost like, well, that's fine because you're a Brexit Party MEP, you probably deserve it. You know, I'm going to say something quite radical here. We've just had the 60th anniversary of the closure of Auschwitz. And there's been a lot of hand-wringing about what this all means and the lessons we should learn from history. And what people seem to not talk about is, you know, you want to know how a whole society of people could be led blindly into the persecution of others. The people who were the persecutors in Germany, the people who joined the National Socialist movement, it was a socialist movement, that is the Z in Nazi, were academics, they were professors, they were the learned classes, they were members of the police force. They weren't the working classes in factories who just had, you know, supposedly racist views. No, this was the sort of intelligentsia of that society. It was the middle classes who wanted to keep up appearances. And we're seeing this again, aren't we? We're seeing once again those who have an appetite for fascistic control, those who like state control, those who like to see people being silenced or thrown in prison, those who want to dictate ideology, those who want to erase religion and replace it with their own pseudo-morality, those who want to pit one group of people against the other, whether this is through DEI policies. It is the middle classes, it is the intelligentsia of this country. So have we learnt lessons? No, we have not. But do I think we are beginning to learn those lessons? Yes. And I just think people like Jess Gill need to keep on going. At the end of the day, there are far more sensible people out there from all classes. You know, my other half always tells me off for pointing a finger of blame at the middle classes. I am one, you know, but I don't really have a better explanation, a better title for this group of people. We all know who they are. But I do live in some hope that this nonsense is beginning to turn around. But what we've got to be mindful of is actually for so long, in order to get on in the police, you've had to sit there and do your diversity training. Mm-hmm. You've had to say the thing in the locker room. You've had to be fearful about the pronouns when you arrest someone. And it's the same in the teaching profession. It's the same in the civil service. This is why so many people fund those classes, are woke because they've been forced to be. In order to get on their professions, they've had to get on that conveyor belt of brainwashing. And actually, a lot of them are so brainwashed now that they can't see the roots from the trees. They've lived this existence where they've been told that this is the right way and the only way, and to think differently is subnormal and ghastly. And so it's going to take a long time for them to be snapped out of it. But I think it will happen.
Alex, there was a fascinating interview that went viral over the weekend between Piers Morgan and Tucker Carlson. There's so much I could say about it, but I just want to show you the particular moment where Piers raised Tommy Robinson and was clearly at odds with Tucker, because I'm fascinated to know your point of view on this exchange. But first, we've been told our whole lives that wrinkle creams were the easiest way to look younger. Now, one doctor says that's nothing but old news. According to Dr. John Lake, great guy, world-renowned Beverly Hills beauty expert, most wrinkle fixes on the market are nothing but glorified moisturizers. He says they hardly make a dent on your appearance. Some can even be harmful to your skin. Now, recently, Dr. Lake has focused his attention away from mainstream cosmetic practices. Why? So that he can pursue a revolutionary anti-aging breakthrough, one that some experts say could empty the wallets of the cosmetic industry. He explains that it's almost like Photoshop for your face, and you may even be mad after seeing how easy it is to visibly erase wrinkles from view. His personal clients have dubbed his new do-it-yourself technique the age rewinder method, because it can take years or even decades off your appearance in under 2 minutes. In light of this amazing breakthrough, Dr. Lake has released a step-by-step video to the public, free and uninterrupted, where he outlines exactly how to use this simple solution from home. He commented, "If this helps even one person look younger or feel more confident, I'll be thrilled knowing I helped." The video, not surprisingly, has gone viral. At first, it was shared by users on Facebook, but since then, it's racked up over 2.3 million views. The comments and feedback have been outstanding, with thousands of women reporting they look decades younger. One viewer even commented, "Best results of anything I've used. I can't believe how well this works. I'll never stop using this. I don't understand how it works, but the results are great. Thank you." So you can find out more about this yourself right now. Just go to bhmd1.com/outspoken or click on the link in the description box below. That's bhmd1.com/outspoken. Now, there is one thing Dr. Lake asks from his viewers. If watching this video helps you look and feel younger than you have in years, then please share this video with your friends and loved ones. He says, together, we have the power to help as many women reclaim a youthful look as possible. So go watch the video, bhmd1.com/outspoken right now, or just click on the link in the description box below. But now, back to the show.
And also, look at the case of Tommy Robinson. Tommy Robinson, most Americans I speak to think he's in jail as some kind of political prisoner like Nelson Mandela for having views about
or Julian Assange.
Yeah, but that's not why Tommy Robinson's in jail, because he defamed a young Syrian refugee.
Defamed?
Yeah, he lied about him.
Okay.
Well, he did. But he was then, no, the guy eventually...
How many of your leaders have gone to jail for lying?
What?
How many of your leaders have gone to jail for lying? They lie constantly. Every time they speak, they lie.
Not enough. It's not enough.
Right around zero, actually.
Yeah. That doesn't
But they throw powerless people in jail for saying things they don't.
So I was fully with Tucker on this one. Alex, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, look, Piers Morgan fits perfectly into the category that I've just talked about. People who have had to be deferential to certain ideologies to get on in their careers. People think that Piers Morgan is some sort of free speech absolutist and brave and opinionated. He's nothing of the sort. He really isn't. He's, he doesn't like Brexit. He's not one of us, really. And I like Piers. Look, I worked with him at Talk. I like him tremendously. But the idea that he is courageous and fighting the good fight on behalf of the unheard in the United Kingdom is frankly ridiculous. And Tucker Carlson does make a point. Look, Tommy Robinson committed what is essentially a civil offence. It was contempt of court. He made a documentary. And actually, the irony is, of course, the documentary he made was all about how the professional classes are manipulated and close ranks, particularly when it comes to certain issues, and talking about the particular child he allegedly defamed. His argument was actually there was a cover-up on the nature of this child and the behavior of this child. And so he was actually talking about the cover-up, and the cover-up has continued, and he is in prison. Tommy knew he would end up in prison. He also made a conscientious choice that he was going to do what he did anyway. And a very brave choice it was. And I think he made that calculated decision knowing that the cause would be further advanced if he ended up in prison. And it has been. Tommy Robinson is now somebody who's garnered international celebrity and a huge fan base in America, and a huge fan base amongst people with a great amount of power in America. So I think he's a very clever man. And he knew what he's doing. I like Tommy a great deal. Like you, Dan, I went to see Tommy in prison. And I think that when it comes to journalism and reporting, he's done a great amount in, being the first really to try and have this conversation. I think that there's been a huge amount of misinformation put about. I wonder if Piers Morgan has ever sat and looked through old EDL videos and tried to find the smoking gun of racism. I wonder if he's watched the film that Tommy Robinson made. I wonder if he's actually spoken to Tommy Robinson, as we both have done. In recent years. I wonder if he is just going along with the mainstream narrative because he's always worked for mainstream outlets. I think it's probably the latter. And this is the thing, people in America haven't, they're not sort of stuck in that straitjacket that our broadcasters and our commentators and our politicians are. There's nothing for them to lose about really delving into this topic and investigating it for themselves. But on that note, look, when it comes to those two, Tucker Carlson has got a bit balmy lately. I like Tucker Carlson a great deal. Most of the time I listen to him and think he's absolutely brilliant. But we also have to be mindful that there seems to be a trend now of people who once upon a time were really sound, opinion drivers on the right. A few of them seem to have been going a little bit, a bit far as well. What will be interesting is to see the reaction nationally and internationally when Tommy Robinson is actually released, and to see the news coverage then. Will they can't ignore it anymore. They largely didn't really talk about him before he went to prison. The day he comes out, it'll be interesting to see what the conversation is in mainstream media.
Yes, and I was really interested by the comments Lee Anderson made over the weekend, by the way. The Mercian pointed this out because he said of Tommy Robinson, he doesn't even want to join Reform UK. He's made that quite clear. Tommy Robinson says a lot of things that a lot of people agree with. And yeah, on the grooming gangs, yeah, there is a lot of stuff there that I agree with him on. Alex, I thought that was the perfect position for a Reform UK MP to take. Great messaging. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and this is it. But also remember, has Tommy Robinson been saying, I want to be in Reform UK from prison? No, he has not. I think that Tommy would rather people in Reform didn't sort of throw him under the bus. I know that's what he thinks, because he has said that to me repeatedly. He just sort of says, why can't they just leave me alone? But it's not them doing it. It's the media playing a game of trying to skewer Reform UK by pushing this issue. And I think Lee Anderson has got the balance about right there. Don't let our opposition, don't let the mainstream media create this straw man and try and divide us. That's what they're trying to do. And also for anyone sitting there going, well, why don't they just come out and support Tommy Robinson? It's about numbers, it's about winning elections, and it's about coverage. And I can tell you this right now, if Nigel Farage or, Rupert or any of them turned around and said, I really like Tommy Robinson, it would be the only thing you'd hear about. That's the only thing the media would ever want to talk to. They're trying to do it now. It's the only subject they want to speak to Reform UK about. It would block out all of the other sound and sensible issues they're raising in front of the public that is garnering them such support in the polls. And sadly, when you want to win elections, when you want to get polling that looks above 30%, which is the kind of area you need to be getting to, the threshold you need to beat to start really winning seats in meaningful numbers, you're going to have people who vote for you who for a long time have been told that Tommy Robinson is a thug, a hooligan, a racist, an Islamophobe, whatever, and will feel uncomfortable if the party backed Tommy Robinson. That is just the truth of the numbers. But like Lee is saying, it's a non-issue. We don't know what Tommy thinks. He's in prison. We don't, this idea that this is some sort of wedge in Reform is an invention. It really isn't. So I think that people who like the politics of Reform UK just go, that's a political party and I like their politics. You can also like Tommy Robinson at the same time, or dislike Tommy Robinson at the same time. You like the politics of a political party, and let's just leave it there and don't let the opposition to reform win this game.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.